Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 19th of January 2021, and we are looking at chapter 28 today of James and the Giant Peach. These are the questions that you will need to answer, and as you will see, these questions will be at the bottom of the pages on the relevant page so that you can find that answer nice and quickly. So in vocabulary, we need to find the meaning of the word malevolently. We are going to have a think about why the peach is leaking. I'd like you to think about explaining how the cloud men are made to be scary in these chapters. We are going to retrieve information such as what are the cloud men making in chapter 28? What happened when the peach hit the rainbow? What stops the centipede from being able to see? And then at the end, we're going to summarize chapters 27 and 28 in less than 40 words. Well, you are. So, chapter 28. One by one, the travellers came out again onto the top of the peach and gazed carefully around. The moon was still shining as brightly as ever, and there were still plenty of huge, shimmering cloud mountains on all sides. But there were no cloudmen in sight now. "The peach is leaking!" shouted the old green grasshopper, peering over the side. "It's full of holes and the juice is dripping out everywhere." "That does it!" cried the earthworm. "If the peach is..." So why is that peach leaking? What happened at the end of chapter 27 to make that leak? "Leaking? Then we shall surely sink." "Don't be an ass," the centipede told him. "We're not in the water now." "Oh, look!" shouted the ladybird. "Look, look, look, over there!" Everybody swung round to look. In the distance and directly ahead of them, they now saw a most extraordinary sight. It was a kind of arch, a colossal, curvy-shaped thing that reached high up into the sky and came down again at both ends. The ends were resting upon a huge, flat cloud that was as big as a desert. "Now, what in the world is that?" asked James. "It's a bridge. It's an enormous hoop cut in half. It's a giant horseshoe standing upside down." "Stop me if I'm wrong," murmured the centipede, going white in the face. "But might those not be cloud men climbing all over it?" There was a dreadful silence. The peach floated closer and closer. "They are cloud men. There are hundreds of them, thousands, millions." "I don't want to hear about it," shrieked the poor blind earthworm. "I'd rather be on the end of a fishhook and used as bait than come up against those terrible creatures again." "I'd rather be fried alive and eaten by a Mexican," wailed the old green grasshopper. "Please keep quiet," whispered James. "It's our only hope." They crouched very still on top of the peach, staring at the cloud men. The whole surface of the cloud was literally swarming with them, and there were hundreds more up above, climbing about on that monstrous, crazy arch. "But what is that thing?" whispered the ladybird. "And what are they doing to it?" "I don't care what they're doing to it," the centipede said, scuttling over to the tunnel entrance. "I'm not staying up here. Goodbye." But the rest of them were too frightened or too hypnotized by the whole affair to make a move. "Do you know what?" James whispered. "What?" they said. "What?" "That enormous arch. They seem to be painting it. They've got pots of paint and big brushes. You look." And he was quite right. The travellers were close enough now to see that this was exactly what the cloud men were doing. They all had huge brushes in their hands, and they were splashing the paint onto the great curvy arch in a frenzy of speed, so fast, in fact, that in a few minutes the whole of the arch became covered with the most glorious colours: reds, blues, greens, yellows, and purples. "It's a rainbow," everyone said at once. "They're making a rainbow." Oh, isn't it beautiful? So what are the cloud men making? Just look at those colours. Centipede, they shouted, you must come up and see this. They were so enthralled by the beauty and brilliance of the rainbow that they forgot to keep their voices low any longer. The centipede poked his head cautiously out of the tunnel entrance. Well, 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 he said, I've always wondered how those things were made. But why all the ropes? What are they doing with those ropes? Good heavens! They are pushing it off the cloud, cried James. There it goes. They're lowering it down to the earth with ropes. And I'll tell you something else, the centipede said sharply, and if I'm not greatly mistaken, we ourselves are going to bump right into it. Bless my soul, he's right, the old green grasshopper exclaimed. The rainbow was now dangling in the air below the cloud. The peach was also just above the level of the cloud, and it was heading directly towards the rainbow, travelling rather fast. We are lost, Miss Spider cried, wringing her feet again. The end has come. I can't stand it, wailed the earthworm. Tell me what's happening. We're going to miss it, shouted the ladybird. No, we're not. Yes, we are. Yes, yes. No, oh my heavens. Hold on, everybody, James called out, and suddenly there was a tremendous thud as the peach went crashing into the top of the rainbow. This was followed by an awful splintering noise as the enormous rainbow snapped right across the middle and became two separate pieces. So what happened when the peach hit the rainbow? The next thing that happened was extremely unfortunate. The ropes that the cloudmen had been using for lowering the rainbow got tangled up with the silk strings that went up from the peach to the seagulls. The peach was trapped. Panic and pandemonium broke out among the travellers, and James Henry Trotter, glancing up quickly, saw the faces of 1,000 furious cloudmen peering down at him over the edge of the cloud. The faces had almost no shape at all because of the long white hairs that covered them, and there were no noses, no mouths, no ears, no chins. Only the eyes were visible in each face, two small black eyes glinting malevolently through the hairs. Then came the most frightening thing of all. One cloud man, a huge, hairy creature who must have been 14 feet tall at least, suddenly stood up and made a tremendous leap off the side of the cloud, trying to get one of the silk strings above the peach. James and his friends saw him go flying through the air above them, his arms outstretched in front of him, reaching for the... Right, so this is where the word malevolently can be found. See if you can work out what it means. Reaching for the nearest string, and they saw him grab it and cling to it with his hands and legs, and then very, very slowly, hand over hand, he began to come down the string. Mercy, help, save us, cried the ladybird. He's coming down to eat us, wailed the old green grasshopper. Jump overboard! Then eat the earthworm first, shouted the centipede. It's no good eating me. I'm full of bones like a kipper. Centipede, yelled James, quickly, bite through that string, the one he's coming down on. The centipede rushed over to the stem of the peach and took the silk string in his teeth and bit through it with the snap of his jaws. Immediately, far above them, a single seagull was seen to come away from the rest of the flock and go flying off with a long string trailing from its neck. And clinging desperately to the end of the string, shouting and cursing with fury, was the huge, hairy cloudman. Up and up he went, swinging across the moonlit sky, and James Henry Trotter, watching him with delight, said, My goodness, he must weigh almost nothing at all for one seagull to be able to pull him up like that. He must be all hair and air. The rest of the Cloudmen were so flabbergasted at seeing one of their company carried away in this manner that they let go of the ropes they were holding, and then, of course, down went the rainbow, both halves of it together, tumbling towards the earth below. This freed the Peach, which at once began sailing away from the terrible cloud. But the travellers were not in the clear yet. The infuriated Cloudmen jumped up and ran after them along the cloud, pelting them mercilessly with all sorts of hard and horrible objects. Empty paint buckets, paintbrushes, step ladders, stools, saucepans, frying pans, rotten eggs, dead rats, bottles of hair oil, anything those brutes could lay their hands on came raining down upon the Peach. One Cloudman, taking very careful aim, tipped a gallon of thick purple paint over the edge of the cloud, right onto the centipede himself. The centipede screamed with anger. "My legs," he cried, "they're all sticking together. I can't walk, and my eyelids won't open. I can't see, and my boots, So what stops the centipede from being able to see? My boots are ruined. But for the moment, everyone was far too busy dodging the things that the Cloudmen were throwing to pay any attention to the centipede. "The paint is drying," he moaned. "It's going hard. I can't move my legs. I can't move anything." "You can still move your mouth," the earthworm said, "and that is a great pity." "James," bawled the centipede, "please help me. Wash off this paint, scrape it off, anything." Okay, so now you need to summarize the events of these two chapters in fewer than 40 words. So make sure you count carefully. And if you pause the video now, you can answer the questions and get them written down or speak them through with your parents, and then unpause and we'll go through some of the answers. Right, welcome back. So now you have read the story and seen where the answers are in the text, you can have a really good look at these possible answers below. Some of you might have something slightly different. So vocabulary, define malevolently. It's an adjective and it's having or showing a wish to do evil to others. Why is the peach leaking? Well, the peach is leaking because the Cloudmen threw hailstones at it and the stones pierced the skin. So now the juice of the peach is seeping out of the holes. Explain, how are the Cloudmen made to be scary in these chapters? Well, the Cloudmen are described as faceless, which makes them seem scary, and very malevolently looking, which means they seem to be evil, don't they? So I put a quote here from the book. "The faces had almost no shape at all because of the long white hairs that covered them. There were no noses, no mouths, no ears, no chins, and only the eyes were visible in each face, two small black eyes glinting malevolently through the hairs." Retrieve, what were the Cloudmen making in chapter 28? The Cloudmen were using the cloud to make marbles, and these marbles are actually hailstones. And then they were making the rainbow, weren't they? What happened when the peach hit the rainbow? The peach hit the rainbow in the middle and split it in half. What stops the centipede from being able to see? The centipede is hit in the eyes by purple paint that one of the Cloudmen throws at the peach as it passes by them. And then your summary is whatever you've decided, whichever 40 words you've decided to use. So going back to that retrieve question, the Cloudmen were using to make marbles. Those marbles are hailstones. That was 27 actually, wasn't it? And the rainbow was being made in chapter 28. Okay, with that special paint. Right, well, I hope you have enjoyed listening to the story and answering the questions, and I will see you soon in a Zoom.